All right. Welcome to the podcast, Savannah Barker.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Savannah Barker. I am a commercial interior designer. I've been in the industry for around 15 years now. I graduated from Bellevue College with my bachelor's degree in interior design and a certificate in sustainable design. I then worked at Gensler for 13 years. I started in the San Francisco office as an intern there in the commercial interior studio, then interned in the Seattle office my senior year of college. And then after that, I got hired on full time and worked there for quite a while. I primarily have focused in workplace design projects for tech companies, consumer goods brands, law firms, but I've also touched on projects in multifamily residential, retail, hospitality, and building repositioning too. So a little bit of everything. And yeah, I kind of grew up within the firm and went from an intern to a senior designer and lead designer there, and also had involvement in community impact while there as well. And then in June of 2023, I left Gensler, just kind of looking for a change and new challenge. And I've actually kind of fell into freelancing. And the past year and a half or so, I've been freelancing with global experience agencies. So working in the world of corporate events and kind of bridging my like interior design background with environmental design and experience design. So that's been pretty cool. And
Wow.
that kind of inspired me to launch 26 Robots, which is a solo design agency offering freelance interior design services to in-house design teams in AEC, CRE, and events industries. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. That's a great background and great story. I will dive a little bit into a couple of these things in a little bit, but uh, what's kind of a fun fact about you that is like not a work related, could be work related, I guess,
Okay.
but something that people don't know.
Okay, I didn't know which way to go with this one, but I'm gonna
Right.
say the first thing that comes to mind is I have a Bernese Mountain Dog, and his name is Pumbaa, and eventually we'll get a wiener dog name and name it Timon, so we have Timon and Pumbaa. But a couple years ago, he actually accidentally, unintentionally bit the tip of my finger off, so it was partially off, and I had to have it reattached. So that's not a lot of people know that, so that's my
Wow.
fun fact.
All right. All right.
But we're all good. Everything's intact.
And functional.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I can still type. It's all good.
Your phone screen still sees it, right?
Yes, exactly.
The-
A little bit of nerve damage. Doesn't feel quite the same, but it looks all right.
My background is originally in theater, and
Okay. Yeah.
I did a lot of, you can see the swords behind me a little bit. I
Yeah.
did a lot of stage combat, and I
Cool.
actually injured the tip of my finger in a machete fight.
Okay. We
Yeah,
have
and
this in
so
common.
similar, yeah, I mean, it didn't have to be reattached, but
Yeah.
there's definitely nerve damage.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
definitely know what
Everything
you
just
mean.
feels a little different with that finger.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
not quite the same, right?
Yep. A little crunchy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We might have to edit that part out if people are squeamish, I guess. Yeah.
Right. As long as we're not showing photos, is a little
Yeah,
gory.
right. I worked in healthcare for a long time. That doesn't bother me
Okay.
either.
Okay. Gotcha.
Cool. So you've had a lot of experience working with global brands. Are there projects that you've done that you can talk about that stand out for you? Or
Yeah.
like favorites?
Yeah. Of course, the projects that come to mind are the ones that are the more confidential ones as my more like standout projects in my career. So I think I can just kind of talk about them in like generic terms. But yeah, I think, yes, I've been able to have the opportunity while working at Gensler to work with global brands, and that that's always exciting. And but I will say like some of the projects that were like pro bono or nonprofit projects were just as fulfilling, if not more, in some ways. So I liked having kind of the breadth of high profile to low profile, but a couple that stand out to me, I got to work for several years collaborating on projects for a confidential coffee company. And for me, those projects were really pivotal in my career because it was when I was kind of stepping more into a leadership role and being able to kind of like exercise, design leadership and nurturing that client relationship over time. And we got to, work on multiple projects across their North American portfolio. And I think just being able to like grow with the client and be able to learn the client over time and kind of express their brand in the workplace. So yeah, I think, collaborating with team that was just super inspiring. I mean, both internally at Gensler and on the client side and the contractors. I just felt like we had just a really great team dynamic, and it just stands out to me as
Mhm.
like I was just feeling so just fulfilled by the work that we were doing over that time period. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oftentimes, I've definitely found that team, having the right team, is so critical. And I don't know if you read our blog posts, but I just wrote a blog post exactly about
I
that.
saw it and I read it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's obviously present, like top
Yeah.
of mind for me. It has been for a long time. I almost want to squirrel out a little bit about about your experiences with leadership, only
Sure.
because I find leadership to be fun and exciting.
Yeah.
So maybe bridge that a little bit with, now making this transition to being kind of an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
doing something different, and how you think, what got you into leadership, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
This it's a good question. I am definitely more of an introvert by
Mm,
nature, and I feel like sometimes there's this idea that leaders need to be extroverted, and I disagree with that. I think that there's ways that you can lead in a different way that might resonate with some teammates that maybe need a more, I don't know, sensitive kind of support or something. So I say that just in context because I think that it was always something I was like grappling with, was like taking on more of that kind of like, leadership role and being more out there, being more expressive with my thoughts and opinions. But I think that the kind of introverted side of me like wants to make sure that like everybody's voice is heard and like,
mm,
everyone has ownership of things. So I try to like find a balance in that. And in terms of transitioning to freelancing, I think I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, but I had exercised it like more within a firm, like within initiatives and grassroots
mm,
efforts kind of within a firm. But I had never really thought like, oh, I want to open my own firm someday or start my own company someday. That wasn't really a path that I ever really thought I'd take. And I think maybe because I had always thought that, well, if if you're an interior designer, like the path would be to be a residential like solo interior designer, and that's not true. That's just was my perception of it, like that was my only option kind of thing, and I
right.
wasn't interested in residential. And I am very team oriented, so I always thought, oh, I'd have to kind of work solely on my own, so that's not really right for me. So freelancing in the commercial interior design world, it like allows me to still be very much like team focused and get that satisfaction of working with a team and collaborating, but also have the independent kind of like leadership side of like owning my own business and being able to kind of take that where I want to. And yeah, it's giving me a good like best of both worlds kind of
Yeah,
situation. So
cool. Very
yeah.
cool. I think, a couple of things that you said really resonate with me. One is I think it's really important to have different kinds of voices in leadership.
Yeah.
Having a different approach is super critical. Too often I think leaders uh, get really it's their way or the highway,
Right.
and there can be only one. And I
Yeah.
just That's true. I think that there's not everybody is the same. I know for myself there were absolutely people I could never get through to. That
Sure.
just
Yeah.
they just they couldn't hear me,
Sure.
but they
Yeah.
could hear somebody else. So I just leadership is just I just like talking.
Yeah.
Talking
Yeah,
to other
yeah.
leaders
And
about it.
everyone has their own way of leading, and like that's valid. Like you said, like it's going to resonate with some people and other people might not resonate with the way you lead, and that's okay. I think just like finding a way to be as like inclusive as you can with your team and yeah, finding a way that like works for everybody in their professional growth. So, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Totally agree. Well, cool. What wasn't on our list of questions, but I
Yeah.
told you we
Surprisingly
might
with these.
squirrel out a few times. So,
It's all good.
kind of continuing along, with our conversation about 26 robots.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like what do you do? What do you offer? And are there specific things that you're trying to solve for clients?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's exciting. A new chapter. I offer freelance interior design services and environmental design services to in house design teams at corporate brands, architecture firms, experience agencies, and real estate service firms. So, like commercial real estate firms. And that could be in a design leadership capacity, or it could be in a design support and production role. So being able to kind of like flex both sides of my experience. And that could be over the course of an entire project, or it could be a portion of a project, maybe coming in, just for, test fitting and space planning, or maybe I'm just coming in for, DD, or it doesn't really matter. It's more the kind of catering the services and the role to the client and the project that I'm working on. So yeah, in terms of problems that I'm trying to solve, I mean, there's always the project problems and goals, right? But I guess in terms of what 26 Robots is trying to solve is, there's a lot of like burnout that's happening on design teams. And I think, designers are taking on a lot. Sometimes you just need one more teammate, to help kind of with the bandwidth. So I think that's one thing I'm focused on. I want to be able to help kind of like ease the workload and bridge that gap. And I think too, just if there's teams that need a specialized skill set, or they need a specialized expertise in workplace design or events, etc., being able to come in with that kind of lens on to help elevate projects.
Right.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of you're just a utility player, really,
yeah,
in that environment, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting niche. You're hitting so many different things that you could help people
Yeah.
with.
And I think, there's always like, I'm early in this, so who knows where it will go and whether I'll niche down more, or I'm not
Right.
sure yet, but I think
Right.
like keeping it aligned with my interests for now, and kind of like
Mhm.
seeing what types of companies in what sectors are kind of like needing this sort of support, and maybe I'll niche down further, but I think right now I'm trying to keep it somewhat broad so that I can kind of find my way in this.
So we touched on this a little bit in your background and kind of your journey, but what was your kind of the driving factor behind
Yeah.
becoming a freelancer?
Oh, good question. So, driving factor, like I said, I never pictured going into freelancing. It wasn't something that was on my radar, but I knew I needed a change. I knew I wanted a new challenge of some sort, but I was like, not really, I didn't have a clear picture of what that would be. So, I told myself I'll take some time off. I'll, kind of think about it and figure out what my next steps in my career is. And I sort of fell into freelancing as a temporary means of like, okay, while I interview places, I'll
Mm.
freelance and get, experience at a new company and all that. So that's where it started. But then as I was like getting like one project turned into another, I was like, can I make a career path out of this? Like I'm actually really enjoying this. And I kind of fell into it, but there's also other components that play into why it's a meaningful like career transition for me. And one of those things is that I was looking for more like flexibility in where and how I work in my schedule. But then a deeper layer to that is that during this time period while I started freelancing, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And I debated talking about this, but I think it's an important part of it, because it meant that I was now like managing some chronic pain and how
Mhm.
that's gonna like fit into my workday and things. And freelancing allows me to kind of, if I need to, take a little more time in the morning in order to like deal with a flare up or something, I'm able to do that and still get my work done. I think just looking for more flexibility in a way that like takes care of who I am and my body, and also taking care of my clients and teammates. So
Well,
yeah.
I think it's so important, and I didn't know the background
Yeah. Not a lot of people
or
do.
any of that, so
Yeah.
I didn't mean to ask a loaded question.
No,
But
no.
thank you
Yeah.
for for being
Yeah.
vulnerable and honest about that.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
think I'd like love to hear your take on this
Yeah.
too. As a leader going through COVID,
Yeah.
watching how work has changed,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way in which we deliver work, the way in
Yep.
which we deliver projects has changed. And at the same time, being home in that enforced way for so long allowed us to take care of the laundry at a
Yeah.
reasonable and
Yeah.
take care of, go to the grocery store in the middle of the day rather than right at five
Yeah.
o'clock. And all of those things, all those little life enhancing things,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I still feel like I haven't even fully embraced that level of like flexibility. Like I still am in that like work mode of like at my desk. Sometimes I have to
Mm,
remind myself, you can like take a walk or something if you need to. So I'm still learning how to like not be stuck in my habits of feeling like I'm tied, or
right.
like, okay, Savannah, you can go work from a coffee shop sometimes or something. So I'm still working on kind of like really fully embracing that flexibility. But I think, yeah, we find our own grooves, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so, yeah, in terms of the pandemic, it's completely changed how we work and our ability to get things done, over the cloud. There's so many collaboration tools now that we can use to feel like we're like live working with each other, through Miro or, the BIM 360, just
Right.
being able to collaborate more efficiently remotely has really changed our
Yeah,
industry.
yeah, yeah. Well, and for so long, and I definitely in the architecture and design world, there are these specialties, these little subspecialties that exist, little pockets,
Yeah.
and not every market, a Seattle doesn't have everything, right? So sometimes
Yeah.
you have to go to a New York firm or a San Francisco firm or something like that. I think that kind of explodes all of that too,
Hmm.
that the
Yep.
ability to work anywhere.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, I know there's licensing issues for
Right.
architects, but
Yeah.
some of that other stuff aside, like a lot of this work is really agnostic in terms of where you do it from.
Yep. Yeah. It's kind of opening up the pool of like potential teammates because you're able to source from more, areas. And
Right.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of exciting to see where things go. And I think IDIFCO, is going to be a big part in being a connector in that way. Yeah.
That I mean, it's a question I had kind of farther down. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
How do you see that?
Yeah.
How do you see that platforms like Identifico
Yeah.
um, changing that landscape?
I will just say when I first heard about Identifico, I got this just excitement within me because it felt validating of like, okay, what I'm building, it has a place in this world that Identifico is building. And it just, yeah, it just felt like it was kind of like validating to the path that I'm on. And I think how it's going to really help for freelancers is that we can sometimes get really caught up in the work that we're doing at the time. And it's important to make sure that you have work coming in, in your pipeline
Mhm.
so that you're avoiding that kind of feast or famine cycle.
Right.
And so I think that, and not that like anybody should fully rely on a platform, but it's one way to,
Right.
make sure that you have a visibility out there and that you're connecting with the right types of clientele. I'm excited about, I know it's like AI powered in terms of the matchmaking between client and freelancer. And I'm just excited to see like, yeah, where that goes and what sort of opportunities could come from that and how it helps to kind of disrupt the industry and change how we all work together.
How we
Yeah.
think about it,
Yeah,
right?
and how we think about work. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah. I mean,
teams.
one of the things when Mandy and I first started talking about it about a year ago,
Yeah.
um, that excited me was that idea first as a freelancer, as somebody in the industry who has hired freelancers, um,
Sure.
and have had to search for different kinds of things, having a place to go,
Hmm.
just that
Yeah.
is a huge win
Yeah.
for both the freelancer and for the company, the client
Yeah.
side.
And one thing I meant to mention to your point, like, is that there's other marketplaces out there, yes, but they are so broad that it's not catered to our industry specifically. So I think what's really cool about iDifco is that that when you're, searching for freelancers on there, that it's going to be catered to the industry. It's going to be vetted to make sure that it has a level, people have a level of professionalism and experience in the industry. And so that's what I'm drawn to with Idifico because I haven't embraced the other platforms yet because of that reason. I think just it's so broad and like
Right.
yeah, it's appealing to the masses and
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think the other thing that's interesting is to me is watching how generational things happen with work,
yeah,
and how current generations are more about gig work. They
yeah,
want to work and they want to work and want to be able to control that, have
yeah,
some control over that.
yeah,
And I think that's fantastic.
yeah,
I think that's going to
yeah,
hopefully lead to more healthy work-life balance,
yep, yep,
less burnout.
yep. I will say you come to another project like when I have a little gap between projects, I come to the next project like so refreshed and ready to like jump in that
Absolutely.
I've never yeah, I've never felt so, I don't know, just like ready and clear-headed with projects because yeah, I have a little time. I can take a little break between each, and it's been really good for me, just the balance that I feel, and
Right.
yeah, definitely less burnout.
Well, I think there's also this for me. I kind of feel like I'm Gen X, and so
Yeah.
for me, I kind of bridge this. I've worked for boomers my whole life, as
Yeah.
I think we all have, right?
Yeah.
No offense to boomers.
No, we love them.
We'll have to edit that out. No, but I've worked for boomers for most of my life,
Yeah.
and there's definitely that kind of
Traditional.
traditional.
Yeah.
If you're not in the office, you're
Yeah.
slacking off. If you
Yeah.
you
Butts
know
and seats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't believe that that's
No.
true. It's
Yeah.
not my lived experience.
No.
The people who slack off at home
Yeah.
or
You would
slacking
know.
off in the office,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
They're the
Yep.
same people, right? It's
Yep.
not none of that
Yes.
changes,
You don't turn
and you deal
into a
with it as a
slacker.
disciplinary problem,
Yes. You don't
you
turn into a
know.
slacker because you're at home. You're the
Eh,
same person whether you're at in the office or at home. If you're driven by your work and you love the work you do, you're going to be productive and,
right.
contributing at home. So, yeah, to me, I,
Yeah.
I completely agree. It's not the same.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think I think to kind of
Yeah.
complete
Finish
the
your thought. Yeah.
circle. Yeah, finish
Sorry.
my thought about the boomer thing is that they know what they knew what they knew,
Yeah.
and future generations things have changed so rapidly and
Hmm.
continue to change so rapidly. COVID changed so much. I just think that the time is right for this kind
Yeah.
of platform.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really exciting to me is
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so we've talked a lot about flexibility
Hmm.
as it pertains to work-life balance. And we touched on this a little bit in terms of talking about your clients and how you can offer any number of different services to them. But can you tell me a little bit more about how that flexibility kind of how you can see using that to your advantage?
Yeah. In terms of like the role that flexibility plays, for me, it's like I can't ask for flexibility unless I'm giving it back as well. So I just believe in being flexible as like being a good teammate to work with, being an easy person to work with. So I want to build that flexibility in the way that I work with clients and design teams. So flexibility to me means in the way that we engage, whether it's like a certain type of contract that they want to engage with, or whether they want to engage with hourly or monthly retainer, et cetera. So being flexible in that way, and then also flexible with whether I'm like taking the lead or I'm taking, more of a like production role, like either way. So yeah, I think just making sure that it's a tailored experience for each project. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not having like a fixed mindset about like who I need to be on this team. Like I don't have that.
Right, right. I have to be in
Yeah.
charge of the time,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and like flexible also just being project based, right? So they're being able to, hire the right person at the right time for the project, but not being tied to the full-time salary and overhead that comes with that. So I think that in itself is
Right.
flexible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely in my career have seen that as an owner's rep.
Yeah.
Being on that side of things, um, you see all the money that these companies pay for these consultants,
Hmm.
and you wonder, at least in the early days, I would wonder, why are they doing that? They just should
Yeah.
hire all the people. But then then you
Yeah.
start to realize the impacts of big HR
Right.
and having to have people on your payroll is a different. It's just a different
Yep.
thing. That flexibility is really critical, I think, for companies.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah. To be
companies,
able to,
yeah, companies for whom commercial real estate, construction is not their bread and butter.
right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Can I ask you a
Um,
question?
yeah, absolutely.
Like what led you to Identifico, and yeah, what do you see for your role in VP of Enterprise?
So, what led me to Identifico? So, I've known Mandy for a little over 10 years. We know a lot of the same people and have had many conversations. And I've just always really enjoyed her as a person.
Yeah.
we spend so much of our time working. I'm a firm believer of work with people that you like,
Yeah.
and the rest is easy. And I've been really fortunate to have a lot of really good mentors, leaders, friends along the way. And I went through COVID working as an owner's rep, and went through a lot of growth,
Hmm.
grew the team, and really enjoyed doing that. But I burned out a bit
Yeah, sure.
on that, and also was really starting to, for myself, and I don't think I could have articulated it at the time, but starting to question whether a traditional work situation was for me anymore.
Yep.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that idea of becoming a freelancer, I don't think you're way farther down that path, I think, than I had gotten myself to.
Sure.
But yeah, so I think the time was right
Yeah.
for me and for the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then how I see my role, the second part of that question, the flexibility thing is huge
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
I'm already doing things, I mean, doing the podcast, and I'm writing more than I
Mhm.
think Mandy or I had talked about or thought about originally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think my role is going to morph and change a bit, but I'm really excited about the platform launching and
Yeah.
getting it going. I'm excited about working with some clients to kind of tailor it to what they need, and
Cool.
help them build their scopes of work.
Yeah.
It Especially in the earlier days, I think we're going to learn together. One of the things I love about working with Mandy is she's very flexible. She's
Hmm.
very like, well, she's kind of built flexibility into it. She's like, we know that until people start using it, we aren't going to know certain things.
Right.
So we know
Yeah.
that there's going to be change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to like put something out there to get it started and like for people to respond to and play with and then kind of
Yeah,
learn along the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm really excited about that aspect of working with clients to improve the platform, but
Yeah.
also to get them, to give them what they need as well. I just think that's going to be a lot of fun. And
Awesome.
I like the flexibility aspect, that I get to write more. I get that I get to do
Yeah.
this, meet nice
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and have a chat.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's cool how things kind of like fall into place at the right time, you know?
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I don't worry too much about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, right? You've got bills to pay and all that stuff, but
Sure.
it's still, yeah. The
There's,
older I get, the
yeah.
more it just every step I've taken has gotten me here.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's like a level of trust. You have to be like comfortable with some level of uncertainty. I think,
Mhm.
at least as a freelancer, I feel that, and it might not be for everybody. Not everybody has that like same appetite for, like riding the wave. So,
Right, right.
so yeah, I think there's always going to be a level of just needing to like trust that the path you're on is like, going to get you to where you want to be and just putting your all into it as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of one of the things I wrote about in my blog post the other day. Was that be open to saying yes to those opportunities that come along, because you just,
Mhm.
I went to college to be an actor.
Yeah.
Commercial real estate was not my future.
It's a very
and,
big jump.
and yet here I am,
Yeah.
35 years later,
Yeah.
having had this career that is crazy to me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I've said yes along the way.
Yeah. 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 And it just kind of like naturally like follows like an organic path that you may have never been able to predict, you know?
Yeah. So I had a couple of other questions that were on the list of questions, and I think they're really important. At least one of them is, because we're talking about work and how we got here, and all of that.
Hmm.
What advice would you give, a young
Yeah.
person who's kind of just starting out in the industry?
Yeah. Do you think in terms of like the design industry in general or in freelancing or both?
Both. I think both
Okay.
are equally valid.
Yeah, I think in the design industry in general, so like if you're just coming out of school or even in school, like absolutely getting involved in professional organizations. So for commercial interior design, I think it's especially helpful to be involved in IIDA. Um, that that for me was a way to like really meet professionals, go through portfolio reviews and get feedback from professionals on your work, and then getting practice to like talk about your projects. And that can go a long way to getting connected to the right opportunities down the road, and also just like building your network, which is just I think huge in our industry. So that would be my like one piece of advice, just getting involved, putting yourself out there. um, and then in terms of like if somebody's thinking about freelancing as maybe their next step in their career, I think there's no like one right path, like one like right time in your career for people to do that, because I can only kind of speak to my path. Like for me, I found a lot of value having worked in a firm for a good portion of time before doing that, but I don't think that that necessarily needs to be your path, right? You could maybe spend less time in a firm than I did, or maybe have another route. But for me, I do think that the value that or the experience that I had working in a firm and working with large teams and working with big clients, like I bring that into who I am as a freelancer. So for me, that's like really like a key part of my path. But that's not, doesn't have to be everyone's. And then I think just like some practical things, if I could share like just some practical tips. I think just learning about worker classification laws. Every state is different. So just learning about, what makes, legally an employee versus an independent contractor, and just being familiar with that dynamic. That's something I had to learn about, and that will help keep you compliant and also keep your client compliant. So that's important. Looking into if you're a woman, WBE certification. There's a lot of tools out there too to like look into, like I mean, IDIFCO could be considered a tool as well, but I think tools like Asana for project management, I track my time that way. Honeybook for billing and CRM, so client relationship manager. What else? And then I'll add one like kind of just more soft kind of advice, but just like I think that for me, I think I really like tied my identity to a firm in a way like that. I was like so proud to work at Gensler, and as I should have been, like it was an awesome firm, to be a part of. And but I think like knowing that your value is not tied to a firm or tied to a title or tied to client you're working with, and that you have your own like inherent value. Everyone does, and you have your unique way of like bringing yourself and your background and your like diverse way of thinking to a project, and like that's your value. Your experience is your value. I think just having that self-confidence to be able to like if you are leaning towards starting something of your own, like you bring that with you.
Right.
I think that would be, yeah, just knowing your worth.
Yeah, that's great. That it's fantastic. And I think it's so important to be reminded of that. I think everybody suffers from imposter syndrome
Yeah, for sure.
at
Definitely.
times.
Yep.
Um, and it's really important to, I think, especially if you're a freelancer, because you are going to have more
Yeah.
challenging times and more busy times. Just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
keeping the North Star.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think I say that because I think I needed to hear that. And I still have to remind myself of that too, Like yeah, I definitely get imposter syndrome as well. Just anytime I'm like stepping into or outside of my comfort zone, it's like, oh, But
Right.
but yeah, I just think being able to just overcome that as much as you can, and don't let fear hold you back,
Yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Right. Right. Courage isn't the absence of fear.
Right.
Courage is action
Yeah,
in the face of fear.
exactly.
Right. It's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Very cool. So, was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I feel like, well, you answered the question that I had asked you about just your background and roles. Was that, I don't know, what about like from your perspective, what should freelancers maybe be aware of, particularly designers, to provide the most value to enterprise clients? I didn't give you my questions at a time, so this is
Yeah,
not
yeah,
fair
no,
of
it's
me.
good. That's a good one. I think I'm gonna hate saying this as soon as I say it, but I think it's
Hey,
true.
yeah,
I think having had experience with a large client and with a corporate client
sure.
in the past is critical
Yeah,
for enterprise clients.
okay.
I don't think you can go from being, from only working with tiny companies and just plop yourself there.
Yeah,
the politics and the all of the machine would kind of eat you alive if you weren't prepared
Yeah.
for it. So I
Yeah,
think
that's fair.
that's my 30,000 foot top of my head answer.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I mean, I'm kind of thinking back to what I wrote in the blog about what I really started writing that blog about was be easy to work with.
Yep. I
That
completely
was
agree.
really where I started. That was be easy to work with. Be the person who is, when I said be the go-to person, that's what I mean. Be the person that everybody wants to say, "Oh, hey, I want to work with that person."
Yep, absolutely.
Be fun. Be
Yeah,
fun,
yeah. And I
you
think
know?
that like that you can see that in the end result in projects, I feel like. Like when I look back at projects where we had the most fun, they tend to be the projects that I actually think
They're the
turned out the
best
best
projects.
too. Yeah, because we all got along and we were sharing ideas and we
And
brought out our best selves, on the team. So, yeah.
I think about one of my favorite projects that I ever did. Wasn't the biggest or the flashiest or even the
Hmm.
coolest,
Yeah.
but it was a group of people working really hard to pull off the impossible, and we did
Yep.
it. It was awesome,
Yep. Yeah, totally.
you know. And
Yeah.
and those teams, yeah, I don't know. It's clearly top of mind for me right now. Just the team aspect is really huge. So
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's about the people you work with. Yeah.
it is. It's totally about the people. It's totally about the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. It's been great chatting and getting to know you a
Yeah.
little bit. And
You too.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and you're pushing me outside of my comfort zone, so that's probably a good thing.
Well, a little push here or there is
Yeah.
probably probably all right. You
Yeah.
did great. You didn't seem very nervous or
Well, that's
like
good. I'm
yeah,
faking it.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. I've been an actor since I was 9, and I've been on stage hundreds of times, and I am still terrified before I go on stage every time,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single time.
Same. Like my heart races before thing. I mean, I do, through my career so far, like I've definitely presented a lot to clients and things. So there's that, right? So you have to like get
Yeah,
comfortable with
presentation is
that.
hard.
Yeah. So I was telling myself today, it's just like a presentation in a way. Like
Yeah,
it's just, I mean,
totally. Yeah,
same little like fear, little heart racing kind of feeling, but it's like just quiet that and it's just a conversation.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Well, I when Mandy kind of pitched the idea of participating in the podcast, both this one and any going forward, there
Don't know.
was
I
a
wish I could tell
oh
you.
no, I said because one of the things I said to her that I really liked about my old job was I interviewed people all the time. I was always interviewing people. I was
Yeah.
every week. I had a team of 100 people, and there was always somebody we were hiring. So it was just
Yeah.
always. And I love interviewing people. And so she goes, "It's just an
Hmm.
interview. That's all it
Yeah,
is." I'm like,
totally.
"Oh well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all day. This
Yeah.
is great."
Yeah, you've got lots of experience in that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I like doing it. And so this is fun for me to do. And so thank you for
Yeah.
being
Yeah,
the
of
person.
course.
But I think that she would think I didn't do it right if I didn't ask you my interview question.
What is that? I'm scared.
Yeah, don't be scared. And I didn't prep you for this on purpose.
No, that's why I'm
No, it's okay.
scared.
No, 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 no. It's totally fine. So I'll just prep you the same way I prep people I was interviewing when I was
Okay.
interviewing for roles.
Okay.
There's no, and I've asked this question hundreds of times, maybe thousands.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong answer.
My heart's
Answer,
racing.
take a deep breath.
Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Savannah.
It's all good.
Okay, there's no right or wrong answer. Answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. You can ask clarifying questions.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes,
Okay.
I think.
You're driving a car, it's on fire and full of clowns. Which one do you save?
Like the clown or the car or the clowns or which
I didn't
clown?
specify, did I? Very
Wait.
good. So
I mean, clowns are
intentionally
people,
asked
so I
that
would
question.
save the
I
clowns.
intentionally asked that question vaguely because most people don't catch that.
Yeah, because
Yeah. So for the sake of argument, let's say the clowns. Which of the clowns do you want?
how do I know? I would want to save them all because they're all people.
That's a good answer. Okay.
Unless they're like clown, like animated clown, or I don't know, are they some
Evil
fake
clowns.
clown or something? Then I would just let them go. But if it's like people clowns, like for
Got it.
sure.
That's a good answer.
Yeah,
That's a good answer.
yeah, yeah.
So the reason I asked the question,
What do people say?
all kinds of things. All
Some
kinds of
people are
things.
scared of clowns, so they would let them go, and that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Clowns are creepy. I've heard that one a number of
Yeah, I'm
times.
not scared of clowns. They don't scare me.
Yeah. You picked up on the vagueness of the question and asked the clarifying question about car clowns.
Yeah.
just I learn a lot about a candidate by asking them
Yeah. Like how
because
people think.
how they
Yeah.
process. The only wrong answer, I say that there's no wrong answer. The only wrong answer is an inability to answer.
Sure. Like indecision in the moment. Because
Yeah,
then you're dead too, because you're just in
I've
this
had two
indecision.
people
Yeah.
really all the times. I'm only two people who couldn't answer the question.
Interesting.
Yeah,
How did you come up with this question? Like, were you asked it or you just developed it?
developed it.
That's awesome.
I was pretty early in my career as a senior project manager, I think. Certainly early interviewing, and I was just trying to figure it out. I didn't, I tend to go by the gut a lot,
Yeah.
but that doesn't always work.
Right.
And working for the client I was working for, it was a very specific kind of mindset you had to have, and
Yeah.
being inquisitive, asking
Hmm.
clarifying questions, being decisive,
Yeah. Yeah.
and being able to defend it. If somebody had a weird answer I'd never heard before, I would ask them to defend it a little bit. Like, why did you ask
Yeah.
that? I mean,
Yeah.
yours was very really clear. You value
Yeah.
people. You value people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a core value for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if they're clowns.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Clowns are people too.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yes.
So
I like it. It's a good
yeah.
one.
Yeah. So well, I'm glad your heart. I mean, hopefully your heart isn't racing anymore.
No, I'm good. I'm back down to normal.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know where it was gonna go. We're good.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Cool. All right. That wasn't too bad. Yeah. I was like nervous about it, but I feel like it wasn't too bad.